Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond Recovery. My name is Matt, and I am joined by another podcast host. His name is Braydon for the Sobering Up podcast. Braydon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Matt. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I'm doing really well. What about yourself?
Yeah, I know things are good. Things are good. I'm running the gauntlet of podcast interviews today. I think I have
Yeah.
five. So you're number two. No, number three. Maybe it's six. You're the halfway point for me, which
Wow.
is cool.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's really good. I'm always happy to have other podcasters on here. So it's really cool. I like a lot what you were doing with your show. We're both in the Instagram sober community, and I gave you kudos, I believe, on your show as well. Like, just going for it. Getting your name out there and getting getting some reps in, getting the work in, and it's celebrating it in real time. Like, here's my logo, putting it out there. It's really cool, man. Because there's a lot of people that have a self-defeating, or there's some self-doubt or imposter syndrome that would have some nerves around that. So, kudos to you. But yeah, let's get in, like, sobering up podcasts. Tell me about it. Tell me about how it formed, and then we'll get into your, like, sober story itself.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. I mean, I kind of listen to podcasts a little bit here and there. But since getting sober, I just kind of had an idea one day. It was kind of, I guess, random, but I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give the podcast thing a try, and I thought using it or having it to be about my sobriety would be kind of the topic I wanted to go for, and so it all happened pretty quickly. I got a microphone, and I started making my logo and the Instagram account, and just kind of connecting with people in the sober Instagram community. um, and then, yeah, I just started brainstorming ideas and putting out some episodes, and it kind of, snowballed over time a little bit. And now I enjoy it. And it's a great tool for me to, maintain sobriety. And it's a good outlet for me to, talk about anything that's on my mind, or share any advice for people that are trying to get sober. Yeah, I've just really enjoyed the whole thing so far.
That's awesome. Yeah, I noticed the other day you posted it was I think 100 days in, 100 days sobriety and
Yeah.
reflections on that. So I thought that was a really cool episode, and congratulations on
Thank you.
getting into the three digits now is
Yeah.
amazing. So past the 3 month mark. I find that a lot of literature goes into speaking about how long it takes to reform, or, like, not necessarily reform, form a good habit, or reform a better habit that you had before, that sort of thing. Seems to be around the 90-day mark, right? 3 months in. There's some, somewhere along in the spectrum, about 62, 64 days. I think there's some study that pinpointed that exact day. But, it's different for different people. So yeah, what are some of your reflections on your first 100+ days sober at
Yeah.
this point?
Yeah. I mean, the first 100 days, my biggest piece of advice, or the thing that I learned quite early on, was just to go easy on myself, right? And just not be so hard on myself with certain things, because obviously living the lifestyle I live now, being sober, is such an adjustment compared to what I was living before. So, it's going to take a lot of time to figure some things out. And yeah, so definitely go easy on yourself. Um, I would say that another big thing would be, try to have a good support system around you, which isn't always easy. But, if you do have some people supporting you, it definitely does help. And I know we mentioned this on my episode too, but try to have a plan as well, because, white knuckling it only kind of gets you so far. And I just think, personally speaking, that if you have a plan set up, I think that's kind of the the key to long-term sobriety.
Yeah, plan for sure. So what was your plan going in? I guess so. Let's back up all the way back to the beginning. Like, what was your childhood like? And when what was your first sort of introduction into alcohol? Like, when did it start getting becoming part of your life, and just the whole context of that as well?
Yeah, of course. So I was born um uh in a small town in Ontario. Um I was born into it was a pretty nice family, a pretty nice household. Both my parents were great. There was never, neither of my parents are alcoholics. I do know that my dad did have some problems with alcohol when he did drink. He wasn't an alcoholic in the sense that, he didn't drink every day. And I know that, you don't have to drink every day to be an alcoholic, but he
Mm.
definitely did have a problem with alcohol when he did drink. But yeah, I had a good childhood. My parents did what they could for both myself and my sister. Um, and I was first introduced to alcohol, or had my first drink, I want to say 16 or 17. I believe that's when I first had my first beer was around that age.
So 16, 17. Yeah, and like what was it like for you that first drink? Like was it it's to me there was one of two camps. It's either like, "Ooh, I can't imagine ever doing this again," and then you continue to go through with it. Otherwise,
Yeah,
or it's just like magic and it's like, "Oh, this is what I've been missing." Where was it for you?
yeah, I want to say it was more to like, I kind of just had the first drink, or just because everyone else was doing it, you know what I mean. It
Yeah.
was like, it was that environment. I couldn't even really tell you exactly where it was, but I know there was other people drinking, so I was like, you know what, I'll give it a try. And then slowly it progressed into 18, 19, and then going out every single weekend.
Yeah.
And but
Yeah.
yeah, I would say at first it just, I was just doing it because everyone else was, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it like pure pressure or was it pressure you're putting on yourself because it was just so normalized or a little bit of both or like what was that like?
I would say more than anything, probably putting the pressure on myself.
Okay.
Like, oh, I feel like, at least in in my experience, I feel like if I don't drink, then like I won't fit in. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, I
it's
get you.
right. So
Yeah.
especially being young at that age too, it's so like impressionable, and you always want to fit in and stuff like that. So I want to say it was more pressure on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it put the pressure to fit in. So yeah, okay. So you've had your first few drinks, and take us into, out of your teenage years into your early 20s.
Yeah.
Did the drinking escalate? Like when did it come be, to a point where you're just like, man, this is kind of getting on top of me here. Like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So Um, once I turned 19, I would go out with my friends on weekends, sometimes, twice a weekend, Friday nights, Saturday nights. And when I started to notice that when I did go out and I did drink, I was usually the drunkest one.
Mm. Yeah.
It wasn't one or two, right? And looking back now, I noticed it. And I guess at the time I did, but I didn't really want to take in kind of what was happening. But it was, I couldn't just have one or two. It was either, zero, or it was like 12, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I realized, that, it might be an issue, but I never thought much of it, because, I was a little bit, I was younger, and, all my friends were partying, this and that. And it's crazy because it's like, it's almost like excessive drinking is like normalized, in the
Yeah.
sense that it's like, it's not frowned upon. You know what I mean? Where you see like
Yeah.
these posts of like, frat parties or this and that. So it's like, I just thought that was how everybody drank and what you were supposed to do when you drank, you know what I mean? And then over time into my early 20s, I got into a relationship that ended. I was dating her from from when I was 17 until 21. Um, and then we broke up, and that was the first time where I turned to alcohol to treat kind of what I was feeling, the depression, the anxiety afterwards. It started to be just like the only medicine that I would give myself, and it started to I drank pretty much every night. I was in school at the time, so I would drink every single night. And just to kind of suppress my feelings, the anxiety, the depression. And eventually, within about a year, that went on for about 8 months. I mean, it was every night for sure. And it was starting to become a problem in the sense that it was creating problems in my household. I was
Mm,
living with my mom and my sister at the time, and I know I couldn't be trusted around any alcohol that was left in the house. I was drinking whatever I could find, whatever even if it wasn't mine, it didn't matter. Um, and for 8 months that went on. And then eventually, I guess the drinking slowed down in the sense where it wasn't every single day. It was, back to drinking on weekends with friends and stuff. And it's funny because, I got into another relationship, getting closer to, I want to say, 23. And that relationship lasted 2 years. And then, um, drinking was, still a thing. I was still going out on weekends, finding or going to, festivals or whatever it may be. I don't recall really drinking too much, or at least every single day or every night in that period of time exactly. But then, like the previous event, I went through a breakup, and I was like, wow. Not that it did at all. I'm being sarcastic, but alcohol helped
mm,
me so much in the last breakup. Well, let's do
yeah,
it again, right?
sure.
And so I turned to it because I guess it was really the only thing I was familiar with to kind of make myself feel better. And then from there it just spiraled completely, where I wasn't working at the time. I was drinking every single day. I was It was, I was kicked out of my house. I was living in hotels at the time, and I was still drinking every single day. I'd wake up in the morning. First thing I would do was start to drink, and I just couldn't. I couldn't picture being sober for more than any like amount of time that I had to be. It was as long as I had some kind of alcohol in my system, I thought I felt okay, but it was taking a huge toll on my mental health, my physical health. And I knew what I was doing in the time was wrong. I knew, like, there's a problem. I got to fix this, right? But I just did not know how to break the cycle. And it was just a terrible place to be in. But yeah, that's kind of where it led up to, the point where I decided enough is enough.
So before we get into deciding enough is enough, you can look back on it, and yeah, I always the more people I talk to that are in sobriety, alcohol free recovery, however you want to word it, there's like some definitely some overlaps or some common themes, but of course it's nuanced to that person's life experience and environment and so forth. So the ones that really are familiar for me is like, yeah, using it as a like when you've broken up with somebody or like you're coping, the loss or grieving, masking these emotions and thinking that it's helping you, and in fact, it's just prolonging the inevitable. These emotions are going to have to come to the surface at some point, and no matter how much you're pushing them down. So that was a big one. Just the drinking every day, and this is the thinking that like it's, you feel the need to just like maintain that throughout like every day, and this repetition that happens. Just a question for you, like when you were in that stage, like what kind of what was your mindset at as far as like what was your inner dialogue as far as like justifications, like how was your addict brain or like the alcohol brain, verbalizing it to you as far as like, oh, this is normal, or like I deserve this, or like, how did that show up for you?
Yeah, I mean, in the time, it's almost like it what I wasn't even thinking. Like,
Mm,
I would have thoughts at the time that, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew this wasn't normal. I knew I kind of had to get my stuff together, but I just continued to drink because it was really the only thing I kind of like, the only way that I felt comfortable just going through everyday life. As long as I had a buzz. But even that wore off at some point, and it wasn't even, I'd have to drink more and more just to feel any kind of way at all. And but at the time, I don't think I was even thinking, you know what I mean? I think my
Yeah.
mental health was so deteriorated and my mental like strength, it was just, it's like foggy for me to even think back. It was like, I don't even
Yeah.
know what was going on in my head at the time.
It was just so habitual at that point. You had perhaps lost control entirely, right? It was just
Yeah.
such a, you were just kind of just doing it to do it almost
Yeah.
by the sounds of it, eh? Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. All right, so you get to the stage now where it's like, is enough? It's like, what was that for you? Was there a specific moment that you remember that, or was there like, the fog kind of lifted for a moment and then you raised your hand for help? What did that look like for you at that stage of the game?
Yeah. Um, so I was living in, this terrible motel that's like local. Like, it's a very shitty motel. And
Yeah.
um, I just texted my mom and I was just like, you know what? I think I need to go to the hospital to detox. Um, I was just, I was just so sick and tired, like mentally and physically. It, it got to a point where I was having some suicidal thoughts leading up to that point. Um, and it was scary. And I just, like, I knew I had to do something, no matter what it was going to take. I knew I had to do something. So I texted my mom, she picked me up. I went to the hospital. And then I stayed in a local hospital in the addiction and mental health unit for a week and a half, detoxing, with the help of, doctors and nurses. And I did all the programs that they offered in there. And it was kind of the start to the amazing life that I'm kind of living now and I've kind of built for myself. But yeah.
So when you're in the hospital there, and you're getting to the stage where you're starting to dry out, and you're getting your wits about you, your mind's coming back. Yeah, what kind of reflections were you having at that point? Were you feeling, like lucky, grateful? Were you feeling kind of like confused as to how you ended up there? All the above. Like what kind of thoughts were going through your head at that point?
Yeah, I was grateful to be there, and I was happy. As
Mm.
much as I was happy because I knew that I was going to make the most of this. And now even like the first week, the first 7 days, that was the first 7 days of being there and being sober. Um, that was probably the longest stretch of time that I've been sober since I was 19.
Wow. Yeah.
That week
Yeah.
alone, right?
Sure.
And I knew that I want to make the most of this stay. So I took in all the programs that they offered, all the classes they offered. And I wanted to come out of, that place with a whole different mindset and, the tools and to, keep up my sobriety and just go from there. And, yeah, so when I was in there, I was really just, it was for a change, I was happy. It felt good to be sober. And I forgot what that felt like for a very long time.
Yeah.
And so I realized that pretty quickly while being in there. And, it just kind of, it was like, okay, let's keep this going after I got out. And, I just haven't stopped since.
That's beautiful. So when you got out, what were some of the things that helped you maintain that? Like, it's worth noting. I want to say it was day 30 or somewhere along there is when you decided to start the podcast. Is that correct? In around there?
Yeah, yeah, somewhere around day 30, I believe. But
Yeah.
yeah, so when I got out of the hospital, my mom was nice enough to let me come back home. She's always been supportive of me and I love her, but I totally understand why, she kind of had enough of me being in the house. So by no means at all do I fault her for that. I totally understand. But she let me come back and this was, she's given me millions of chances before, but she gave me one more.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I had her as a support system, the people in my household. And, I have a girlfriend as well. And we have a little boy together. He's 7 months old.
Oh wow.
So I have them, and yeah, just when I came home, it was just those things. The support alone really helped me in the beginning, and then I started going to AA, and I joined a group, and I have a sponsor now, and every day I'm just looking for new ways to kind of help my sobriety and make it easier on myself, and do things I enjoy, and things that help me, and yeah, it's been a good last little bit.
That's how was the parenting thing? So you must have been just kind of reaching the end of the line as far as your drinking
Mm-hmm.
with your child being in the first few months of being on planet Earth here, right? That must have been, I imagine that weighed on your mind. It's regardless of how sort of out of it you may have been at that stage. Certainly somewhere in there it must have been rattling around that you're like, oh man, I got to do this for this kid now. Like, was there how much of that came up, or do you remember that at that point?
Yeah, of course. So he was born in January, and then I didn't stop drinking until May. So leading up until so from January to around March, I was actually living at her house.
Oh.
And during this time too, I was drinking. I was still drinking, and I wasn't working. And I there's a little baby in my life now, and I'm still doing this. And I'm it makes me upset to say that it took me until May to get sober. But that's the truth. And he was a massive driving force in my sobriety, and he still is now. And I've said in previous episodes on my podcast that I didn't want to cheat him out of a proper dad and a childhood, what he deserves, and I knew I couldn't give that to him if I was still drinking. And that was definitely one of the main reasons why I got sober. But yeah, that's kind of how that went. And it was tough in the beginning, and it definitely didn't help my drinking, because if I'm being honest, I wasn't ready to be a dad. um it was kind of something that we didn't really plan, but it worked out, and I could not be happier with it. But yeah, it definitely was, definitely did not make my mental health too much easier, and or any better. And it was tough at first, but yeah, like I said, now things couldn't be better. So
It's great. Well, shout out to your girlfriend and your what's your son's name?
his name's Levi.
Shout out Levi. Whenever he gets the chance to listen to this, whatever few years from now, who knows, right? So pretty
Yeah,
cool, man. That's really good. Congrats on that.
thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to we'll circle back to the podcast. I got a few questions for you about that. It's just like still pretty new, but you're really enjoying it. And again, this props how you're going about it. I love it. Just like progressing in real time in front of your audience and in front of the Instagram community. Super cool. What are some of your your favorite guests, if you could say, if that they're like, wow, I'm so fortunate I like met this person, or are there any standouts?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the thing is, I haven't had too many guests so far,
Sure.
but definitely, I mean, yourself,
Thanks, buddy.
and TJ as well too.
Yeah,
I've loved having you guys on the show, and I mean, yeah, it's a whole new it's a whole new world for me to kind of do this whole podcasting thing. But like I said, I mean, I'm at the end of the day, I really enjoy it, and it does help my sobriety. And I kind of like helping people as well too. So if anybody can take any advice from watching one of my episodes and hearing what I have to say, or hearing kind of what I've learned along my journey so far, then that's really all I'm hoping for. But yeah, I'm still learning how to um kind of make the best podcast that I can. You know what I mean? I'm
sure.
still,
Yeah.
I listen to other podcasts now, and in the sober community too. And yeah, I'm still learning a lot about it. I'm definitely new to the whole scene, but yeah, it's been a really positive thing for sure.
Yeah, win-win, like you say. It's helping you, it's helping other people. I like what you're saying too. It's like it's a way of, I view it the same way with my podcast, is like it's this other realm of accountability, right? Because like now you're like a sober podcast host. So certainly you can't, go have a quick little relapse, or you know what I mean? It's like you're putting yourself out there, and you have this like there's like this perception that you've created, for better or for worse, so people perceive however they want to perceive it. But that you've put yourself out there, you've committed to being, sobering up podcast. It's literally the title of your show. So all of a sudden there's this like, this like extra realm of accountability. So I'm sure that you feel the same way as I do about with mine.
Yeah, I know, of course. And I
Yeah,
remember you mentioned that when you were on my episode, and it's completely true. Now there is that accountability there, and I'm embracing it. And if anything, it's another reason for me to stay sober. Not that I, don't already have a million, but
yeah, yeah.
it's
Million and one.
yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, it's definitely great in that sense, being accountable and if even if I, have any thoughts about drinking or anything like that, I just think about, everything, the podcast, my son, everything. So it's yeah,
Yeah.
it's all helpful.
It's great, man. It's super inspiring. So, what is the future of your podcast, like you say, or the future of your recovery, sobriety? Like, I'm sure they're kind of in lockstep. They go hand in hand. What are you just taking it literally, just and doing the one day at a time, seeing how things go, or are you starting to kind of, what I could see 6 months from now, I'm gonna fill in the blank. Like, do you have a yeah, short term or
Yeah,
long term? Yeah,
yeah, no, I mean, I would like to say I have a long-term, goal or kind of plan, but I've started at least recently kind of, living in the present and
yeah,
focusing on the present
yeah.
and, being there. So, I haven't looked too much to the future. I'm just kind of taking it day by day, if I'm being honest. Going with the flow and just yeah, I mean, I would like to see the podcast grow and I'd like to, have some more guests on and, meet some more people in the sober community. And, just I would like to, if, would really like to make like impactful episodes where, it really had like, it really, you know, resonates with people and, people can find like help from what I'm saying. And yeah, so really that, that's kind of the, I guess my plan going forward. But yeah, I'm more or less just living in the moment and just being present and not thinking about, too far in advance.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Cause
It's
yeah,
oh,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like sorry, I didn't mean to, but,
No, go.
I feel like yeah, always struggled with living in the present. So, I mean, yeah, it's just something that I'm kind of, trying to focus on now.
Totally. No, I'm the same way, man. I did a lot of future thinking or getting like, start feeling the past again, right? And so it was very tricky for me. I felt like I was either in the past or the future, and rarely like I was living in obviously in the moment in the literal sense, but my mind was always in one or the other, right? That being the future, the past. So it is a fine line, right, between like think I still want goals and achieving, but at the same token, the only way to get that is to have like the best moment you can have right now. So yeah, it's interesting this life, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is.
Awesome, brother. I got two final questions for you.
Sure.
This is my showstopper question. I always ask everybody, what does authenticity or being authentic mean to you?
I would say, what is authenticity or being authentic? I would say just being your true self. I think not trying to put on, a different face or trying to please other people. I just think be who you are and, yeah, just be as real as you can be and let the world see that for who you really are.
So how do you know if you're doing that? What is a
It's a good
sign that you're
question.
not doing that?
That's a good question. I think if you're trying to, please other people,
Mm.
at least, that's how I would view it. If you're trying to please other people or trying to, fit the image that other people around you have of you, um, I think then you're not being your true self.
Yeah.
I don't know if there ever be a moment where you're like, oh, I am being or it's like a exact moment where you'll realize that, you are being who you are, but just don't try to, fit the mold that, other people have created for you. You know what I mean?
That's rad. That's a really good
Yeah.
answer. Where can we find you online, Braden?
You guys can find me on Instagram at sobering up podcast. And then my links in my Instagram bio, the link tree is there, and it has my YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify as well too.
Brilliant. And I do actually have one final question because I know
Sure.
you're wearing the Yankees hat there, but you're an Ontario guy. Are you not a Blue Jays fan?
No, so I'm not a Yankee. I'm not a Yankees fan either. I just
Okay,
like the
okay.
hat. everybody
Yeah.
thinks that. Everybody,
Yeah.
I even when I'm in public, they'll be shouting like stuff at me, and I'm just like, no,
Right?
I just like the hat. Don't worry. But
Sure. It is a classic logo for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
nice hat. But yeah, I am a Blue Jays fan, but more hockey, and I'm a Montreal fan. So
Oh man,
yeah,
you must just get it then, eh?
yeah.
Yeah, wearing a Yankees hat, you're a Habs fan. Oh man.
I'm just all
That,
over the place with
that's
teams
so
here,
funny.
but
That's so
yeah,
funny.
yeah, being a Montreal fan is definitely yeah,
Whew.
I've had my fair share
I
of.
was gonna say I'm surprised you haven't been like captured and beaten or something like that yet. You know, man.
Yeah,
Anyways, Braydon, thanks so much for coming on the show, and I highly recommend anybody that's listening to this check out Sobering Up podcast. Thanks for your time today, my friend.
I really appreciate it, Matt. Yeah, thank you for having me, and yeah, I definitely look forward to talking to you.
Yeah, you bet.